Hello everyone. Wishing you all good health, peace, and the kind of love that feels like coming home. Some moments don't need grand speeches. Just a heartbeat, a look, and a truth long hidden. When the children were finally reunited, laughter filled the room like sunshine after rain. And in that golden moment, CEO Hung turned to Lai Tieu, his eyes full of something deeper than words. "I love you," he whispered, the words soft but trembling with sincerity. Then came a kiss, not of passion, but of promise. A different kind of love. The kind that grows quietly, patiently, and believes in second chances. For Lai Tieu, it was more than just a kiss, it was the beginning of a little dream she once thought she'd lost forever. The summer wind carried the scent of ripe guava through the wooden house as the sun dipped low over the hills. Lai Tieu stood at the porch, holding her youngest child in her arms, while watching little Han run toward her with open arms and sparkling eyes. Her heart swelled with emotion, a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief. After months of hospital visits and lonely nights, her family was finally complete. Behind the running child, Hung walked slowly. There was something quiet in his gaze, something deeper than exhaustion from his business trips, something tender. He carried no briefcase today, only a simple daisy Han had picked from the hill. "Tieu ka," he said softly, placing the flower in her hair. She smiled, her hands trembling. "They're finally home." He nodded, his eyes fixed on her, not the house behind her, not the garden, but her. The woman who had endured storms silently, the mother of his children, the one who never asked for anything, yet gave him everything without a word. As the children played on the bamboo mat under the tree, Hung sat beside Tieu on the stone bench. The breeze caught strands of her hair, and without thinking, he reached out to tuck them behind her ear. "I used to believe I needed to conquer the world," Hung began, his voice low. "I thought success meant flying to another city every week, shaking hands with men in suits, and signing contracts worth millions." He paused, watching as Han chased a butterfly. "But now, I realize, the real success is right here. It's in watching my daughter laugh, in hearing my son breathe, in sitting beside you and knowing I am finally home." Tieu blinked back tears. She had loved him in silence, never daring to hope. Hung reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny box, nothing extravagant, just a handmade wooden case from the local village. Inside was a simple gold ring. "I know I've made you wait, Tieu, too long. But today, when the children came home, when I saw your eyes light up, Painu, I don't want another day to pass without you knowing this," he whispered. "I love you. I always have." He leaned in, gently brushing his lips against hers, in a kiss filled, not with urgency, but promise. The children giggled nearby, unaware of the history unfolding in their parents' hearts. Tieu clutched the ring to her chest, her dream so small, so quiet, yet now so real. Lai Tieu sat in silence, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. She had dreamed of this moment 1,000 times quietly, secretly, yet never believed it would truly come. The man she had once watched walk away was now sitting beside her, offering not just a ring, but a future. She turned the wooden ring box over in her hands, her voice barely a whisper. "Hung, what if I'm not the woman you deserve? I've made mistakes. I'm not elegant, not educated like the women you used to date. I only know how to raise children, grow vegetables, and keep this small house warm." Hung shook his head slowly, gently taking her hand in his. "Tieu," he said, his thumb brushing over her knuckles, Do you know what I saw when I came back from all those trips? I saw a woman who built a home out of nothing, who faced judgment, pain, and loneliness, but never gave up. You made this house a place of peace, and that's more powerful than any degree or city lights." The children, now sleepy after playing in the garden, came over to curl up beside their mother. Little Han leaned her head on Tususurka's lap, her tiny fingers holding a piece of the daisy her father had given. "Mama, can Daddy stay forever?" Han asked, her voice soft like a song. Tuuka looked at Hung, and he smiled. "If Mama says yes, I'll never leave again," he replied gently. Tuuka glanced at the night sky, stars beginning to pierce through the fading sunset. She remembered all the nights she had prayed quietly for strength, for love, for peace. Maybe this was the answer. "I say yes," she whispered, voice trembling. Hung let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He stood and pulled her gently to her feet. Wrapping his arms around her, he whispered into her hair, "Thank you for not giving up on us." That night, the house was filled with warmth. No more empty rooms, no more silent dinners. Just laughter, quiet conversations, and the smell of rice cooking on the stove. Hung carried Ethan in one arm, Han in the other, as he walked toward the newly finished room at the back of the house. Tuuka stood at the doorway, watching them, her heart finally at peace. Her little dream, of a complete family, of gentle evenings, of hands to hold, had come true. And outside, under the moonlight, the daisy in her hair swayed softly with the wind. The sun rose quietly over the hills, casting golden rays across the small wooden house that now held a complete family within its warm walls. Lai Tai Ku stirred awake to the soft chirping of birds and the scent of something rich and comforting wafting from the kitchen. She sat up slowly, still unsure if last night had been real or a dream. But then she saw the ring box on the table, the daisy still tucked gently by the windowsill, and the quiet sound of two children giggling from the next room. And there he was hung, wearing a plain white shirt, sleeves rolled up, barefoot, cooking breakfast like he'd done it every day of his life. The image was so different from the powerful CEO the world knew, and yet, this version of him felt more honest, more hers. "Good morning, my love," he said, noticing her at the doorway. His voice was low, tender, filled with peace. "I made porridge. I remember you liked it with ginger and sesame oil." She stepped into the kitchen slowly, her heart swelling. "You remembered." "I remember everything," Hung replied, placing a bowl on the table. "I remember how you used to wait for me with hot tea. How your hands were always cold in winter. How you cried silently when no one was watching. And how you smiled, how that smile saved me on the worst days." Tiuka bit her lip, tears forming again. "I thought you forgot me." "I tried," he confessed honestly, reaching for her hand. "But no matter how far I went, your memory was louder than any success I chased. I realized I didn't want to build empires if you weren't part of them." The children came running in, barefoot and messy-haired. Han held a drawing of the four of them, the word family scrawled in childish letters. Ethan, still too small to speak much, hugged his father's leg and beamed. Hung picked him up effortlessly and looked at the drawing. "You've got talent," he chuckled. "And you captured my nose perfectly." The room filled with laughter, soft, free, unburdened. Later that day, Hung stood under the newly planted guava tree in the garden and gathered everyone. "I have something to tell you," he said seriously, his arm around Tuuka. I'm going to step down as CEO next year. I've already spoken to James. I want to stay here, be a full-time father, a full-time husband. I want to help build more homes like this for people who have none. This place gave me a second life. I want to return that gift. Tieu's heart fluttered. She had dreamed of love, but not this much love, not this level of sacrifice and sincerity. You don't have to give up your dreams for me, she said, voice trembling. I'm not giving them up, Hung smiled. I'm rewriting them. With you. The wind rustled through the trees. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of a woodpecker echoed, soft and steady, like the beating of a new heart. In the story of CEO Hung and Tieu, we learn that true love is not measured by grand gestures or perfect timing, it is defined by the quiet decisions we make, day after day, to stand by the person we care for, even when life becomes complicated. Hung had power, wealth, and success, but none of it filled the emptiness inside him. Only when he returned to Tieu, when he chose to listen to his heart and embrace his family fully, did he find real happiness. Tieu, though hurt by the past, chose forgiveness and courage. She opened her heart again, not out of weakness, but from strength, the strength it takes to believe in love after loss. This story reminds us that love is not just about being loved, it's about being seen, chosen, and prioritized. It's about two people growing together, learning to let go of ego, fear, and pain, and building something new with open hearts. No matter how far life takes us, or how much success we achieve, if we forget the people who make us feel at home, we lose the most precious part of being alive. So the true lesson is this: love requires presence, honesty, and sacrifice. It is not found in perfect moments but built in the imperfect ones, where we choose each other over and over again. Sometimes, we believe that love will wait for us, that the people who care about us will always be there. But life doesn't pause for our indecision. Tieu could have turned away. She had every reason to close her heart. Yet, when she saw the truth in Hung's eyes, not just his confession, but the way he embraced their children, the way he looked at her, like she was his home, she chose to give love another chance. And Hung, the man who once chased success across borders, finally understood that true success was not in contracts or titles, but in the quiet joy of being with the woman who never asked him for anything except honesty, time, and love. Their journey shows us that healing is possible, that broken relationships can be mended when people are willing to face the past, forgive each other, and look toward a shared future.